Well, we're on to episode 11 of season 4. Our next one is another request, and it seems like Daniel Skinner has requested for me to watch a film about George Clooney fighting vampires around the final 46 minutes of it.
Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. The grub is downright gruesome, but your appetite's obey. 'Cause food's a little funny, food's a little funny, food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe, your favorite meals on wheels. The menu is disgusting and it's full of special deals. Nothing here is good for you, so grab yourself a tray. 'Cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Gobble up your order quick before it runs away. 'Cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Why not visit after school and have yourselves a bite? An appetizing appetizer certain to delight. We haven't done it right unless it makes your teeth decay. 'Cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. The grub is downright gruesome, but your appetite's obey. 'Cause food's a little funny, food's a little funny, food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new episode of Halloween Horror Movie Review Season 4. And this episode is going to be for a Robert Rodriguez film involving vampires. And it's another requested one. And this one was a request from Daniel Skinner, another YouTube buddy. And this film is going to be for none other than 1996's From Dusk Till Dawn. Back in the day when Robert Rodriguez gave a shit about what he directed. So what's the plot of this one? Well, after a bank heist in Abilene with several casualties, the bank robber Seth Gecko and his psychopathic rapist brother Richard Gecko continue their crime spree in a convenience store in the middle of the desert while heading to Mexico with a hostage. Or a few hostages. They decide to stop in for a while in a low-budget motel. Meanwhile, on their hand, the foreign minister Jacob Fuller is traveling on vacation with his son Scott and his daughter Kate in an RV. Jacob lost his faith after the death of his beloved wife in a car accident and quits position of pastor of his community and stops for the night in the same motel Seth and Richard are lodged. When Seth sees the recreational vehicle, he abducts Jacob and his family to help his brother and him cross the Mexican border, promising to release them on the next morning. They head to the truck drivers and bikers bar Titty Twister, where Seth will meet his partner Carlos in the dawn. And when they are watching the dance Santiago Pandemonium, Seth and Richard fight with 3 bodyguards, but soon they discover that the bar is a coven of vampires and they need to fight until dawn to leave the place alive. So, how was this film made? Well, From Dusk Till Dawn was conceived by Robert Kurtzman, who hired Tarantino to write the script as his first paid writing assignment. Universal Pictures originally considered Tarantino's screenplay From Dusk Till Dawn as developed to Demon Knight and the second and proposed Tales from the Crypt film trilogy, but they ultimately produced another vampire film, Borderall Blood, instead. And the El Rey hideout in Mexico was taken from The Getaway, which was a 1958 crime novel by Jim Thompson. And Earl McGraw became a recurring character of Rodriguez in Tarantino's works, who would appear in films like Kill Bill, Planet Terror, and Death Proof as an Easter egg. And Chango Beer and Sex Machine's code-piece gun references to Rodriguez's 1995 film Desperado. Seth also returns to the hotel with Big Con burgers, which were used in Pulp Fiction. Big Koana burgers, and mentioned in Death Proof. And Seth Gecko even says the line, "Alright, Ramblers, let's get rambling." Which was a quote from Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs. And Scott's t-shirt decoration Red Precinct 13, which is a reference to John Carpenter's 1976 film and saw it on Precinct 13. As with many of Robert Rodriguez's films, From Dusk Till Dawn employs a non-union produced crew, which was unusual for production with a budget above $15 million at the time of this movie's release. And after the film was officially shot, the film From Dusk Till Dawn would go on to be released on January 17, 1996. And how was it received by the critics? Well, it received mixed reviews from critics. They described the film as well made but found it overly violent. After enjoying financial success, though, at the box office, because it did not stop this movie from being a box office hit, From Dusk Till Dawn has since become a cult film, and it spawned a media franchise of sequel films, a video game, and other media film adaptations. Now as for my reaction to this movie, you all know I was requested this film for this season by Daniel Skinner, who is another one of me and Lucamus's YouTube buddies. I had never seen this movie before, so I approved of this request. I watched the film this weekend, and how was it? Well, let's say this. Yeah, it was good, but although I don't know why it's called a vampire movie or a horror movie, because I feel like this is not really much of a vampire horror film, because the vampire stuff ain't even till like the final 46 minutes of the movie. So calling it a vampire film just feels really misleading. I just turned on this movie with no preconceptions whatsoever, just because it was a request, because I was requested this one. It turned out to be some good advice, because it makes the twist in the middle do a complete surprise, and the more enjoyable. Essentially, in this movie, you're thrown from one movie to a completely different one, with the main characters as the only thread holding the two together. Almost the entire plot from the first 30 minutes is rendered irrelevant, which I definitely think was a great idea. You sort of know where a story's going to go, but if the point is for the protagonist to travel to a volcano to throw a ring into it, you know they're going to be successful. It has a suspense of disbelief that allows you to still experience some fear when a perilous situation presents itself, but at a more meta level. For Dusk Till Dawn, on the other hand, From Dusk Till Dawn is simply just a fun movie. It's not meant to be taken seriously at all. If you're looking for a movie to sit back and enjoy brainless entertainment, you've got this to watch. There's nothing wrong. There's definitely great acting, music is good, and the special effects are definitely great, but gross. And technically, it's two stories. One story is a different one. The second half is a more crazier one. The first half of our story revolves around these criminals named the Gecko Brothers, and they're played by George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino. They're planning to get past the Mexican border to a bar named the Titty Twister, and so while on their way, they take hostage the Fuller family, which consists of Jacob, Kate, and Scott, played by Harvey Keitel, Juliette Lewis, and Ernest Liu. In the second part of the movie, they finally make it to the bar, but then the second story starts here. Our next story is the vampire story, and it's a bar run by vampires, and soon enough the feasting and slaughtering begins. It's pretty much a staged combination of ice-cold badassery and actual Nazi-ness, leaving you unsure whether you should be rooting for these two guys. The story's exciting. You can definitely see why Tarantino worked on a script, besides also starring in this. And dialogues are once again outstanding and can convey emotions well, and the scenes are often fantastic. Let's face it, guys. George Clooney in this movie was definitely the slightly charming, good-looking, cool-headed leader of the pair sporting a horribly dated tribal tattoo. And this guy makes you think it's fun and easy to be a criminal on the run from the law, and a cool bar to boot. Then you have Tarantino, who's the scrawny, whiny, bespectacled creep who lies and kills people for no reason, but he also appears to be a sexual predator and kills, and possibly even rapes a few women. Now together, this pair do make a fun, fast-talking duo of desperados admittedly. Their bickering is amusing, well performed, and they look quite unique in their appearances and attire, and they are badass motherfuckers as well. The thing is, though, they may seem like enjoyable characters, but they commit some nasty crimes along the way, which are played for dark laughs though, but it does leave a bad taste in your mouth. And you can't help but feel they get what they deserve in the end, and it's just not really easy to feel sympathy for much of the characters. Like, at first it wants to seem like, which one was it again? Yeah, when Tarantino's character gets killed, but didn't this guy also kill a bunch of an innocent female by smothering her with a pillow and then shooting her in the face? Oh, didn't they also like burn that innocent liquor store worker to death? So, I mean, they're great characters, but they're kind of scummy when you first meet them. So, it wasn't really that sad when Tarantino's character died. Because this character is a scumbag in most of the film. In the movie, it's got two halves. The first half just establishes the relationship between the characters and the complicated clash of the geckos and the fullers. That one's a typical Tarantino style crime drama fashion. Then the second half is this action-packed, crazy, batshit insane thrill ride on a side of 70s action movies that clearly shows John Carpenter's influence over Rodriguez. And it's definitely a tribute to their influences. The Rodriguez and Tarantino team create a solid movie that stands on its own as its very original take on horror movies. This movie's just great in a lot of ways. The script's written brilliantly. It's darkly humorous, and a lot of lines are even have me laughing very hard. The acting is good from all the cast, and the special effects are pretty disgusting. And what's refreshing here is you actually see George Clooney in a batshit crazy role, and this is definitely for once he actually tried something different here. When Dusk Till Dawn is literally something else. Just two criminals taking a family hostage to Mexico, to a place called Titty Twister for a meeting point with, and the Gecko Brothers, who, and the Gecko Brothers also meet this group of crooks at dawn. Then the bar is open from dusk till dawn, and it's literally filled with vampires. And it starts off like more of a gritty crime movie. It becomes a splatterfest within the next half. For the most part, it is true. The first half is interesting in terms of cleverness and Tarantino style stuff. There's good dialogue, interesting plot, but also some unlikable characters. But it is unique. And the second half, once they get to Mexico, it really becomes the best segment of the film. And everything turns into some over-the-top, bizarre, gross of vampire blood and guts movie with some bad special effects and cheesy scenes. Some do complain that transformation from seriousness to sudden vampire complex content is too fast and the story would have been far more interesting had it been rooted realism for its entire duration. Well, no. Rodriguez clearly set out to make a homage to the spaghetti western Evil Dead genre to combine at the same time, and did so successfully. Tarantino's script is just a baseline for it all. It's kind of like a bunch of friends that just get together, decide to make this movie, and friends with fairly good reputations of filmmakers. It isn't at all bad, it just takes this total turn. The vampires here are definitely a bunch of ugly as hell monsters. You think of the Evil Dead movies, only the undead zombies and skeletons are vampires instead, and that's a score with a very small supply of vampire slayers to take them on. The movie does kind of start out slow at times, but it quickly picks up pace as the story of the homicidal Gecko brothers unfold. They're on the run for the law. The Outlaw brothers then take a preacher and his family hostage and pretty much take them to Mexico, where they say they will not kill them. They'll just take them to a bar for a bit and then let them free. Once they get to the rendezvous, which is the rendezvous point, things just go from bad to worse. And there is some very low morality of the film, but despite the low morality, it's entertaining and still, and never gets dull, even if violence can be a little much for some viewers in the end. I mean, some things could have been like, maybe 10 to 15 minutes of the film could have been trimmed down a little bit. And George Clooney, who plays the more stable of the killers, Seth Gecko, it's definitely fascinating to watch, though. And maybe he is a bit obnoxious at times, but he's definitely the most fascinating character in a film filled with weirdos. It's definitely one of the most interesting characters Clooney's ever played. And it's definitely stylishly filmed and humorous in parts. It has the Robert Rodriguez look all over it. It's stylish, outrageous, and cartoony-like at times. Many of the characterizers here are pretty perverse, especially Clooney's brother and partner Richard, who's definitely this complete sicko. And Tarantino pretty much played the role very well. Sometimes we're literally watching Tarantino play a fictional version of himself, and it makes the role easier to play. And all the cameos they have at the bar, once they get to the bar in the second half of the film, which was Danny Trejo, Tom Savin, Fred Williamson, Salma Hayek even, they have to be seen in this film to really be believed. And you want to know who sleazy this can get, just listen to Cheech Marin's pussy speech outside the bar, and that about says it all. From Dusk Till Dawn is literally just this wonderful mix of action, comedy, and horror. It's a mix that director Robert Rodriguez really pulled off quite nicely. And the vampires in this movie, now let's talk of the vampires. They're quite a treat to enjoy when you see them on screen. Why? Well, they're not the charming romantic gothic creatures as seen in many other vampire films now that you're often familiar with from the 90s. No, they're definitely not the stupid, sparkly teenage heartthrobs that are seen in Twilight, all that Twilight bullshit. No, they're bestial and animalistic savage creatures, and special effects are good and right on the money. And now, and while Salma is in this movie, she's in it for like one scene, who performs one of the most sexually outrageous dance routines in film, and proves to be a vampire rather than a vamp. And once Tarantino's character is dead or undead, however you look at it, the movie is committed to being an out-and-out action hero with bursts of spoof put-downs of vampire movie cliches. And Clooney Keitel gives a first-rate understated performance as a disillusional preacher, and the two junior vampire hunters backing them up don't look as if they could bruise a bag of apples, let alone hold out all night against the legions of the undead. And more convincing help is on hand in the shape of grim-faced veteran Fred Williamson and ace horror makeup artist Tom Savini, who steals the entry scene as the whip-cracking biker sex machine. And the Gecko brothers, yeah, they're unlikable. They seem like unlikable, unpleasant characters, but they're unlikable characters that are fun to watch. They're equally amusing to listen to. Harvey Keitel's part is well played. Same with the kids, even. I like they didn't make the kids annoying brats and made them likable kids for a change. And some of Rodriguez's regulars, such as Danny Trejo and Cheech Marin, ironically, guys, Cheech Marin actually plays 3 roles in this movie, are here as well, even if they have a small part. Tom Savini is even present, and he has some pretty funny moments here as well. And the only through lines in the film are the characters. And the performances from Clooney and Keitel in particular make for a terrific overall film experience. Movies that screw usually don't have the pleasure of such commanding talents, but from Dusk Till Dawn has them and flaunts them well. It's a shame that Clooney's never played more characters like this, because I would like to see him play more roles like this, because I actually did like his performance as Seth Gecko. Alright guys, and when it comes to the duo of Seth and Richie, Seth is usually the smart, cocky one. Richard, on the other hand, is the more crazy, mentally insane one, in addition to being a sexual pervert. You throw all that out the window, you throw that out the window when the entire lot gets attacked by vampires. And Kyle's Jacob Fuller is this God-fearing man who puts family first, and the geckos and later vampires test in different ways. The characters this likable usually never find their way into films like this, but Tarantino characters have their own category. We empathize completely with Jacob's desire to keep his kids safe above all else. And once the vampires enter the picture, it's when the movie finally starts to get epic. For all the kills here, we have countless vampires that are staked, shot, impaled, beaten up, blown up, set on fire, and ripped apart with blood splattering everywhere, and holy water is thrown at the vampires, and it melts them and causes their organs to spill out. And most vampires that are killed subsequently burst into flames and melt into a puddle of gore, and a table is overturned and 4 vampires are impaled on the legs. In a slightly more realistic scene, a boy is being devoured alive by vampires, and they tear bits of his flesh off and he begs for mercy to kill, and the sister has to tearfully comply with that. Then the man kills a vampire in the stomach with a shotgun and shoots other vampires through the hole, and using the open wound to pump the gun before each shot. It's definitely the most epic carnage you'd ever find in the vampire flick as well. The movie even knows, this whole movie always knows it's stupid at times and it goes along with it. The special effects by K&B are top notch, and the CGI used in some scenes is a little poor at times when compared to traditionally prosthetic makeup employed in the rest of the film. While the violence is never intended to be realistic, the poor CGI at times can make it look more cartoon-like than when it was supposed to be, but it's not a real damaging flaw and the film is still highly enjoyable. And Tarantino's script in this movie, his script is rife with his trademark dialogue, and Rodriguez directs the film with panache. I think that Rodriguez take on the material is pretty close to what Tarantino's would have definitely been. The special effects are handled pretty well as well, and though really effects don't necessarily detract from the appeal of a B movie. And the finale of the movie, easily the best part of the film. How does this go? Well, once the vampires have killed most of the gang, our three remaining survivors, Seth, Kate, and Scott, have to escape to a storeroom. They're followed by an injured but still alive Jacob, who brandishes a shotgun in a storeroom. They fashion weapons from truck cargo the vampires have looted from the past victims, including a stake mounted and a pneumatic drill, a crossbow, and holy water, which requires Jacob to recover his faith to bless. And Jacob, knowing he will soon become a vampire, he makes Scott and Kate promise to kill him when he changes. The group then goes to make their final assault on the undead. The sick machine mutates into a large rat-like creature and attacks Seth, but he gets killed. Then Jacob becomes a vampire, but Scott hesitates to kill him and allows Jacob to bite him. Scott then kills him, but then he's overwhelmed by vampires, who begin to devour him. He pretty much then begs for death, and Kate kills him. As vampires surround Kate and Seth, streams of warning light enter through the bullet holes in the building, and it makes the vampires quickly back away in fear. They realize if they go in there, they'll start to burn, so they back away. Carlos then arrives, and his bodyguards blast open the door. It lets in the sunlight, and it kills all the vampires. And the vampires are finally defeated. Once the vampires are defeated, and Carlos has arrived to meet up with Seth quickly chastises Carlos for his poor choice of meeting place, and he negotiates a smaller tribute for his admission to El Rey. Kate asks Seth if he wants her to go with him to El Rey, but Seth decides, nah, get out of here, go home. You're not part of this anymore, get out of here. Who is apparently now concerned for her safety, and leaves her with some cash. And now, while Seth is definitely a criminal, but I still love Seth as a character in this movie because, yeah, he's an evil criminal, makes stupid choices, and he has issues, but he does get more likable as this movie progresses, and even belittles his boss for picking the worst spot to meet up and getting a family killed along with his own brother, because he even says, it's because of you now, so this girl's innocent family is dead because of your choice. So, there's that. And so Kate drives away in her dad's RV. She leaves the titty twister behind, and it's revealed, guys, that the titty twister was actually the top of an 8-level partially buried Aztec temple. So it's a nice twist as to why the club had vampires in it. It was actually this Aztec cursed temple in disguise that they actually visited the whole time. Except it was buried underground, so they didn't even know it. And that's how the movie ends. Kate just drives away home. Seth and his gang go to their rendezvous points. Their lives just carry on and just nothing else after that. So I like it simply ends there. It's a nice spot to end the movie. And sadly, I heard there was follow-ups, and I've heard all the follow-ups are shit, so I don't want to bother watching them. However, there's a reason I don't overly love this film. I just think it's good. Because I'm just not really a fan of the first hour, because it just kind of makes this whole point of this movie being a vampire movie very misleading. I mean, it's nice to watch Clooney and Tarantino on screen together, and they have good criminal chemistry on screen. Most of the time I was like, okay, am I watching the right movie or something that they were talking about? Because it feels like I'm watching a different movie than what I'm seeing here. And the vampire stuff is like not till the final 46 minutes. So the vampire stuff sometimes just feels like it works best as a short film. And also, Tarantino's character, I felt he just kind of annoyed me a little too much because most of the time he's in the movie, he's just talking about murder and rape in nearly all of his scenes. And sometimes this character just really needed to shut the fuck up for a few minutes. And the film isn't really concerned with plot or characters, but it's rather the mindless vampire action. And after a good half an hour of talking and build-up, the film turns to a series of vampire fights, which to be fair are quite cool, and Robert Rodriguez is a brilliant director, and the movie shows it off in spades, and the action scenes have good choreography and a quick pace, and makes it enjoyable and fun to watch. And keep in mind guys, this was back when Robert Rodriguez gave a shit about his movies. With films like Desperado, From Dusk Till Dawn, this movie, Planet Terror, even, or Grindhouse, Sin City, many others. This was back when he gave a shit. Nowadays, he just relies on the same ideas, and sometimes would try to market some films as over-the-top grindhouse movies, but They just ended up, but sometimes, most of them just end up being nothing but political PSAs about certain things we don't need to hear over and over again. In that case, the Machete films. And then he made a sequel to Sin City 9 years too damn late called Sin City: A Damn to Kill For, which I thought sucked. Since that movie was made too fucking late. And that's why it bombed at the box office. It only made like 13 million domestically, and then it bombed straight away because nobody gave a shit anymore. I know he directed Alita: Battle Angel, but sometimes I seem to consider that more of a James Cameron movie than a Robert Rodriguez movie at times. And I did like Predators. That was the only new film I liked from him was Predators, and that was it. And it was pretty much around Spy Kids when his career started to turn to shit. Because Spy Kids was so successful, I want to make more family-friendly stuff for my kiddies. We had 3 Spy Kids sequels, now a Spy Kids reboot, and then we had Shark Boy and Lava Girl, which is bad, but it's hilarious. At least Spy Kids, Shark Boy and Lava Girl is so bad it's entertaining to watch, but most of the Spy Kids sequels, no. The Spy Kids 1, the first Spy Kids movie was tolerable at times. There's times it tried to be there's times it actually tried to be mature, and it actually tried to have a story to follow, but fuck the sequels. We only needed one Spy Kids movie, and that was it. But back to this film, but I miss the days when Robert Rodriguez directed more stuff like this. But yeah, in short, guys, bad qualities were just not much plot and the slow first hour that I'm not a big fan of, and in some scenes Quentin Tarantino's character. But despite that, From Dusk Till Dawn is a decent enough fun watch. So in the end, From Dusk Till Dawn is a stream online for those that want to see Robert Rodriguez direct a film about George Clooney finding a bunch of vampires for about 46 minutes after the first hour. Anyways, that's it for my review From Dusk Till Dawn, and if you're wondering how I'm going to rank From Dusk Till Dawn, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you love old school Robert Rodriguez and want to see him direct a film about George Clooney fighting vampires, then totally stream this one online if you want to get through the first hour. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank From Dusk Till Dawn, I'm going to give From Dusk Till Dawn a 7 out of 10. There we go! Our episode of my review of From Dusk Till Dawn, so you're wondering, what's going to be the next episode? Well, our next episode is going to be another request from Lucamus Prime, and this episode's going to be for what he considers his favorite comedy movie of all time, and it's from director Edgar Wright, and stars his longtime collaborator Simon Pegg. And it has the feel of a George A. Romero film. That film is going to be for none other than Shaun of the Dead. So yeah, those who have wanted me to review Shaun of the Dead, you'll finally get to see me review it. Till then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.